everyone. Our next session for the day is on the topic widening the scope of prebiotics applications in food. It is my pleasure to invite our speaker, Dr. Priyali. Dr. Priyali has been working on scaling up human health and nutrition programs from incubation to successful completion. She has worked on nutrition perspectives from pregnancy, lactation, infants, growing up children, adolescents, and adults. She brings with her experience of working for undernutrition as well as overnutrition. She has more than 25 international and national research publications to her credit. At Tata Chemicals Innovation Center, Dr. Priyali is leading clinical studies, claim development, and scientific substantiation of ingredients for health benefits. Today, she is the lead scientist at Tata NQ. Over to you, Dr. Priyali.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us for this important session on prebiotics for health and application in food. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the team, the organizers of the NutriThink Conference, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you so much. Before we start the technical session, I would like to share with you the brief agenda of the session, through which I'm going to take you. We are going to talk something on Tata NQ as an overview, introduction to prebiotics, and how does prebiotics support in the human health space, and how we can use prebiotics for various applications, that is food applications. Before we start the technical presentation, I would like to introduce Tata NQ, which is from the business units of nutrition science from the House of Tatas. Innovation Center located at Pune, that is our innovation research R&D facility, wherein we are looking into various human microbiome research studies, which are talking about gut health, skin health, with the view of microbiome. We are also looking into various food applications and the developments of the same, on how prebiotics can be used in various applications. And these are the two important aspects that our R&D facility at Innovation Center Pune is involved with. And we are going to share some of the key research that we have done at Innovation Center with all of you. Thank you for your patience over here. Some of the highlights I would not like to mention over here, which have been mentioned on this particular slide, but I will take you through those highlights as we discuss the various research areas that we have been working on. When we talk about introduction to prebiotics, before we start, I would like to pose a very fair and simple question to all of us. That is, are we 100% humans? This is a question which we need to think. Physically, physiologically, yes, we are humans. However, when we look at internally, if we look at it, we have got millions of bacteria also residing in our systems, which are the microbes in our body. So together, our systems, that is our human body, along with these millions of microbes, we form a complete human body, which is the functional and possibly a healthy human body. Talking about the microbes that we are having in our bodies, if you look at it, they are exponentially higher in numbers as compared to our numbers of cells in our human body. This is something which we need to look at, that we are not just humans, we have got various microbes as well in our body, particularly residing in the gut. When we talk about the gut, typically, is it an important organ? Yes, definitely it is. It is these days, recently it has been named as a second brain. And when we talk about the brain and the gut, two different locations in our system, typically they both are connected. And that is what we have been reading a lot these days about the gut-brain axis. When we talk about these two important organs, that is the gut and the brain, they both are interconnected, and a lot of communication happens between these two organs, the key important organs, which generate various signals which are spread out and sent to the brain and various metabolic functions, immune functions, markers, the responses that are happening in our human body. And hence, if we say various organs in our body are important, the gut is also an equally important organ of our body. When we talk about the gut-brain axis, there is a link between the two organs. Typically, which is being studied and has been mentioned that it is the vagus nerve that is connecting the two important organs of our body. And when we have various metabolic functions or various activities or actions that happen in the gut, which we are going to talk about in the later couple of slides, we see that there are various communications, that is the crosstalk that happens through this particular vagus nerve, which goes to the brain, which sends signals through the neurotransmitters and the signals and the responses which are generated in our body, which lead to various other functions of our body. And hence, if we say various organs in our body are important, gut is also an equally important organ of our body. And gut, like I mentioned in my previous slide, gut is where the microbes or the microorganisms in our body reside. When we talk about various, say, functions, typically such as microbes, such as the lactobacillus and the bifidobacteria, these are some of the bacteria which are residing in our gut that generate various points, various metabolites such as the neurotransmitters also, which are sending responses to our body. When we talk about the neurotransmitters in particularly, the noteworthy neurotransmitters that we can talk about, such as the gamma aminobutyric acid, the acetylcholine, the noradrenaline, the serotonin, which is extremely important, and the glutamate are some of the neurotransmitters that are produced in our gut, which are important for various responses and transmissions that happen to the brain. That is the signaling effect that happens. Typically, when we look at, say, serotonin, almost 90% of the serotonin in our body that is formed manufactured in simple terms, we can say, is manufactured in the gut by the resident bacteria of our gut. When we talk about this particular neurotransmitter, that is a serotonin, in simple terms, you can say that it is the mood neurotransmitter or mood enhancer. That is what we can say. Likewise, these particular neurotransmitters that have been displayed, they have a role in, say, cognition, in memory, in mood, in anxiety, and these kind of reactions and functions in our body. And hence, a healthy gut, what we say, that these neurotransmitters are produced in the gut only by a healthy gut. And how do we have a healthy gut? That is with the healthy microbiome that we have in our gut. And when we talk about a healthy microbiome, what can be the modulators of a healthy microbiome? It would be a healthy gut bacteria, the abundance of the bacteria, that is the healthy bacteria in our body, and particularly the food for these healthy bacteria, so that the abundance of these bacteria are increased in our gut, making a healthy gut. When we talk about prebiotics and their role in gut bacteria, typically what I spoke about in my previous slide, prebiotics is the term which is the undigested carbohydrates or undigested fiber or undigested molecules which reach the gut and are not digested by the human digestive tract. And these prebiotics, these are also the food for the resident bacteria, that what I explained earlier in the slide. When these prebiotic fibers, when they reach the gut, they become food for the resident bacteria, which is the gut microbiota, the bacteria which is residing in our gut. And once these particular prebiotic fibers are fermented or metabolized by the resident bacteria, there is proliferation of the gut bacteria, the resident bacteria, which creates abundance of the bacteria. Now, important is if it's a healthy gut, that means we have resident gut bacteria are of the healthy species, which are related to one or more of health parameters. That means that the particular prebiotic fiber is a healthy food for the bacteria. Once the bacteria metabolizes these prebiotic fibers, there is generation, not only there is proliferation of the gut microbacteria, there is also generation of various metabolites such as the short chain fatty acids. There is generation of various metabolites such as even the vitamins and the amino acids. In vitamins, in particularly vitamin B12 is of great importance because it is typically not present in the vegetarian diets that we talk about. These gut bacteria, they also support in maintaining the gut barrier function as well, because when we talk about the gut microbiota, it is not only the healthy bacteria which resides over there, there can also be the pathogenic bacteria. Another important thing that needs to be noted is in particular the fact that with the increase or the intake of the prebiotics or reaching of the prebiotic fiber in the gut, there is reduction in the pH of the gut. When there is a reduction of the pH, it typically leads to solubilization of the minerals, in particularly calcium, which leads to the fact that it may support the increase in the nutrient absorption, in particularly calcium, the way I spoke about. Another thing that happens when there is a reduction in the pH is in particularly the death of the cells that we may say, or the death of in particularly the pathogenic bacteria. The pathogenic bacteria is not able to survive in a lower pH. Some of them, not all, but some of the pathogenic bacteria which are harmful in nature are not able to survive. And these are various functions which have been evidence has been generated wherein prebiotic fibers play a role in making a healthy gut microbiota and a healthy gut and thus a healthy human system. With the improvement or increase in the short chain fatty acids, that is the metabolites, with the digestion or metabolization of the prebiotic by the gut bacteria, various short chain fatty acids which are produced, they have various functions which support in the glycemic effect, which such as maybe production of various hormones such as insulin. They support in the synthesis of the cholesterol. They support in the absorption of calcium with the pH reduction. They have been evidences have been generated wherein they have a role in even looking into the immune factors as well, which is right now of a very important aspect of study, research, as well as data generation. With these, some of the health benefits of a healthy gut and the effect of a role of the prebiotics for the healthy gut microbiota, I'll take you to my next particular slide, wherein when we talk about the prebiotics, some of the areas of research I've already spoke about in my previous slide. It has been researched. It is not a new area, and it is something which has been researched since quite some time. Typically, like inclusion of prebiotics in our daily diet, it increases the dietary fiber intake, it supports in the bowel movements, it supports in satiety or weight management perspectives, it supports in the gut health, the way we spoke about in my previous slides. They have a role in allergy immunity responses. They help in mineral absorption, glycemic control, even lipid profile management. And important to note is also the fact that all these research areas with prebiotic fiber interventions have been researched across age groups, leading to the fact that prebiotic fibers are not restricted to a specific target group. Across target groups, be it infants, young children, adolescents, adults, pregnant and lactating women, even the elderly, everyone can have an intake of prebiotic fibers. And like I mentioned, there are various health benefits, and thus across the target groups, prebiotic fibers can have a specific health benefit role for the various body functions and health parameters. When we talk about, when we are talking about prebiotic fibers, we are talking about Tata NQ, and I would like to take this opportunity to talk about some of the prebiotic fiber which Tata NQ also is manufacturing. Typically, that is the Fossens, which it is named. In the market, it is known as Fossens. In simple terms, it is the short-chain fructooligosaccharide. It is a 100% soluble prebiotic fiber, which is sweet to taste. Typically, when we talk about short-chain fructooligosaccharide, or in other terms, then we may have a question on what is a long-chain fructooligosaccharide. I'll take it through you, talk about this in my next slide. Having said that, the question which arises is that why do we need to have a prebiotic fiber intake? Like I mentioned, this particular prebiotic fiber or any prebiotic fiber, they are naturally present in various foods. Typically, bananas, in onions, garlic, tomato, radish, roots and tubers, it is present. However, when we talk about efficacy of these prebiotic fibers, in particularly the short-chain fructooligosaccharides that we are talking about, if we need to have an intake of say 10 grams or 20 grams, which is the safety limit of a prebiotic fiber short-chain fructooligosaccharides, we'll be needing to have an intake of a daily intake of around about 70 bananas every day intake to achieve an effect of any kind in any of the health parameters that we talked about for an intake. And the other point is that with a high intake, there are also safety parameters also associated with it. But as a matter of fact, if you look at it, eating 70 bananas in a day, that is something I don't think so. I can't have it. And we'll need to think about what are the amounts. And that is the reason why ingredients such as fructooligosaccharides or Fossens, as a matter of fact, that I'm going to talk on, is something which can be easily incorporated in a daily diet, which may have a health benefit. When I talked about the short chain fructooligosaccharides, it is important to know what do we mean by a short chain and a long chain. Typically, it is the chain length which differentiates it. Typically the degrees of polymerization between the short chain and the long chain, typically the short chain one, that the molecule which we are going to talk about, is typically 3 to 5 is the degrees of polymerization. It consists of molecules of glucose and fructose. Typically, like I mentioned, 3 to 5 is the degrees of polymerization. Initially, when I spoke about the prebiotic fibers, when we talked about, it does not reach the, it is not digested in the upper digestive tract, and it reaches the gut intact. Clearly, it indicates that once this particular molecule or this particular fiber, short chain fructooligosaccharides, reaches the gut, it gets metabolized over there by the resident bacteria. The difference between the two, that is two means, the long chain and the short chain one, is that the short chain fructooligosaccharides is metabolized in the initial part of the gut, while that is the proximal gut, while the long chain one is digested or metabolized in the distal part of the colon. Getting digested in the proximal colon clearly indicates that if it is rapidly getting metabolized, that means the production of the metabolites and the responses is going to happen faster, more rapid, as compared to the long chain fructooligosaccharides or the longer chain prebiotic fibers that may be talked about. That is the basic difference, initial, which I may say so, between the long chain and the short chain. Of course, there are various other differences as well. When we talk about, I did talk about the short prebiotic fibers, how important a healthy gut is, the prebiotic fibers, various health parameters, and I spoke about short chain fructooligosaccharides from Tata NQ, which is Fossens. Now I would like to take you through that if there are various health benefits or health parameters related to fructooligosaccharides, short chain fructooligosaccharides, that is fosans. Do we have any evidences or do we have any data that support that, yes, this is a fiber which may have different health benefits, which the studies I'll take you through. But before I take you through any of the intervention or the intake data from fosans, it is important to understand the gut microbiome of individuals. This is one of the studies which we were involved with TCS, and wherein we wanted to understand and explore whether the gut microbiome of individuals is similar or it's varied. This is a study which we did across 14 locations in the country, and we tried to see of around about 1,000 individuals, adult individuals, healthy individuals, that what is the gut microbiome, how does it look like. And when we looked at the gut microbiome or the bacteria present in various individuals across the 14 locations, we clearly found out that there is a distinct feature. There are various differences across locations. So in conclusion, we may say that every Indian individual in India is having a same gut microbiome or the bacteria in resident bacteria in the gut. That's wrong. A person staying in Gujarat is having a different gut microbiome as compared to a person staying in, say, eastern part of the India or the northern or the southern part of India, clearly indicating that the gut microbiome across locations is different, for the simple fact that the gut microbiome is very much dependent on, most importantly, the dietary factors or the dietary intake or the dietary patterns of each and every individual. When we looked into the prebiotic index of fosans, the fructooligosaccharides that we are talking about, we clearly had shown one of the studies which we did in collaboration with ProDigest in Belgium. We indicated that it has got a good prebiotic index of 14.9 at 24 hours. This is a gut simulation study that was done, clearly indicating that by 10 hours, the fructooligosaccharides is totally utilized by the gut bacteria, and there is production of various metabolites, the short chain fructooligosaccharides, as short chain fatty acids, as well as reduction in the pH. Typically, the factors which are important, which leading to key health benefits that we spoke about. In the study, in one of the other studies, we tried to look at if there is an intake of fosans in individuals at various doses, starting from 2.5 to 10 gram intake per day. Is there a difference in the gut microbiome, or whether fosans is able to increase or improve the abundance of the healthy bacteria? This is one of the research studies that we did, and it is published, and it is one of the most widely referred to studies as well, wherein we found that with an intake of 10 gram intake per day of fosans, there was a significant increase in the bifidobacterium and the lactobacillus by the individuals. We also found out that once the intervention was stopped, that is, once the intervention period was intervention was withdrawn from the individuals, the microbiome or the abundance of the bacteria came back to its initial levels, clearly indicating 2 points. One, that with the intake of fructooligosaccharides, that is fosans, there is an increase in the abundance of the beneficial bacteria, that is the bifidobacterium and the lactobacilli. Number two, if there is a reduction, or if there is an intake stoppage, or if there is a stoppage in the intake of fosans or the prebiotic fiber, the bacteria abundance comes back to its initial stages. That means the sustainability of the bacteria does not remain for long. That also indicates that there needs to be a regular intake of the prebiotic fibers in our daily diet. It can be as a supplement or any of the food applications, maybe, which I will take you through in my subsequent slides. Another study that we were involved with and we looked at and we investigated for was the response, that is the glycemic response with the intervention of fosins. This was done with the collaboration of the GI labs in Canada, wherein we tried to see if there is an intake of fosins, how is the glycemic response and the insulin response. Clearly, what we saw in the results is clearly the fact that when there is an intake of fosins standalone, it behaves similar to that like of water. There is no glycemic response, no insulin response. And when there is a 30% replacement of carbohydrates from any food application, there is an attenuation, that is, there is a decrease in the glycemic response as well as the insulin response, clearly indicating the fact that when there is a postprandial decrease, that means that it may be beneficial to replace some amount of carbohydrates from any of the food applications with the ingredient fosins that may support individuals who are paying attention to their postprandial glycemia and insulin response, as well as those who are in particularly wanting to look at their sugar response. I'll be very happy to also share that this is a particular work which was also awarded at the Nutrition Society, Indian Nutrition Society, that is NSI, in 2019, last year. It was awarded as one of the best clinical studies over there. Another study which we tried to look at is typically on the mineral absorption aspects. This was a rodent model, and wherein we looked at the collaboration with CDRI, and we found that with an intervention of fructooligosaccharides fosins, there was an improvement in the bone loss. That means there is a reduction in the bone loss in individuals, and the peak bone mass was also improved, clearly indicating the fact that with a regular intake of fosins, there may be an improvement in mineral absorption, or there may be reduction in the mineral loss, in particularly calcium. Since this was a rodent model, that is, it was done in rats, we are not able to conclusively say, and this is yet to be studied in humans as a clinical study on whether there is an improvement in the calcium absorption or the bone mineral density in the individuals. Another study that we tried to look at is typically it was a simulation study wherein we found that with intake of prebiotic fibers, this is a simulation study, point to note, there is an improvement in the provitamin D3 biosynthesis, clearly indicating the fact that with an intake of prebiotic fibers such as fosins or fructooligosaccharides, there may be possibilities that there may be increase in the vitamin D status as well. Like in current times that we say that deficiency of vitamin D has been related to various metabolic problems as well. So clearly indicating that if there is an intake of prebiotic fibers, there may be support in improvement in the vitamin D status as well. This is yet to be clinically tested. With various modeling effects, we also saw that there are various combinations which help in increasing the modulation of the gut bacteria. Typically, the Prevotella modulation happens. This is one of the modulation studies that we did, and we have a patent also published for this particular aspect, wherein we saw that with green tea extract, that is the naturals, the curcumin, and fosins, that is the fructooligosaccharides, we are able to modulate the Prevotella bacteria in the gut. This is a modulation study, simulation study. Like I mentioned, this is yet to be tested in a clinical study perspective. So various health parameters I touched upon, and the question that comes into, if this is a molecule, How can it be taken up by individuals? Is there applications wherein we can use it, or it is just as a powder intake that we can have? Typically, there are various food applications which are there, wherein fructooligosaccharides phosphans can easily be incorporated in various applications. Why? Because typically various applications have been have been looked upon. Why? Because it is easy in process. It is highly soluble. That makes it that it would be good for any of the beverages where it can be incorporated. It is easy to use. It can mix up with various ingredients. It supports sugar reduction, typically with the Weight Watchers and the sugar watchers, sugar intake watchers. Affinity to water and acts as a binder, and it gives a support to the moisture. That means that it is humectant in nature. That means it retains the moisture. Typically in applications such as bread or cookies, it remains softer and a bit moist, and it doesn't dry up faster when it is in a final product. Various food formats of the applications are available, which are in beverages, the foods, the herbals, as well as the supplements, wherein the particular ingredient, which is the fructooligosaccharides phosphans, finds its place. We have various applications wherein this particular various applications and the formats wherein the particular ingredient can be used for the final product formation, which can be used by an everyday intake by every individual across target groups. Typically, like what I mentioned, it is sweet to taste, clearly indicating that it can be taken up as a sugar replacer. When we talk about as a sugar replacer, like sugar, normal sucrose, that is 4 kcal per gram, while fructooligosaccharides undigestible fiber, that is a 2 kcal per gram, clearly indicating there is a 50% reduction in the energy density whenever with respect to sugar inclusion, in case it is included in typical any of the food applications. And the sweetness profile is also around about 30 to 40% of the sucrose, which makes it little less sweet. It is not high intensity sweetener, which can be used as a natural sweetener in various food applications. The various applications that I talked about in my two previous slides, such as in bakeries, such as cookies, muffins, and breads, wherein it has clearly shown that it is softer in texture, such as muffins. It does not contain dryness, typically because of its humectant and being humectant in nature. And typically it's sweet to taste. That means that it reduces the sugar content, wherein it can replace the sugar in a particular product. It has also been tested for various dairy and beverage applications, such as the milkshakes, the yogurts, or the various sweetened milks. As such, this has been used, and this can easily go because it increases the typical mouth feel for various food applications over here. And being soluble in nature, it becomes important that it does not lead to a sedimentation. It has also been used in various cereals and nutri-bars, wherein because of its important aspect or functionality in the binding effect and masking of any of the taste because of any of the grainy taste of any of the other ingredients which is there, which acts as an efficient prebiotic fiber which can replace sugar in particular food formats. These are various food applications wherein fructooligosaccharides is being used, available in the market, in the Indian markets in particular, and which have been successfully been marketed across the country. So clearly takeaway points with our session today was clearly the fact that nutrition plays a very important role in the overall well-being of individuals. When we talk about nutrition and overall well-being, gut is an important organ in our body, and a healthy gut relates to a healthy well-being and a healthy overall individual. Typically, when we talk about the healthy gut, prebiotic fibers are key for that and subsequently leads to a overall good health. Prebiotic ingredients that can be incorporated in various food formats, various food applications are easy to process and they can be taken up. Prebiotic fibers such as fructooligosaccharides, fosins, they can be taken up at various dosage across target groups, across ages. It is not targeted only at one particular age group or individual. And being sweet to taste in particular, it is important to note that fosins finds its place as a sugar replacer across food formats, which improves the not only the functionality of the food format but also giving it as a prebiotic effect, helping us as individuals to modulate the gut microbiome, leading to a healthy gut and thus an overall healthy individual. Like I mentioned, it benefits everyone across age groups. That makes it a key ingredient which can be taken up as in our daily diets. That's what I had to discuss. Thank you so much for your time and your patient listening. Our indications of our contacts are mentioned over here. We'll be very happy to take your questions offline if the time permits online as we look forward to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Priyali, for an insightful session. Any questions from the audience will be taken on the e-booth of Tata NQ, and they'll be happy to answer all your questions. Thank you again.